unmute. Hello, everyone. Can you see us? Can you hear us? You gotta let me know because it's been a hot minute since we've been here, y'all. I'm seeing a wave. Hello, Spicy Miso GG. See a couple first time chatters. Diergo, Cyan underscore OW. Welcome. Oh, it's so exciting to be back. And it does feel like a be back situation because it's been crazy. I think all of you have, every end of the year hubbub and then some start of the year hubbub, but we're here and we're super excited to be here doing some demo reviews and chatting with all of you. I can just tell how long it has been by the sheer number of submissions we got. So just like every time, but this time especially, we have like such an overwhelming number. We are never going to get them all to them all. I'm so sorry, but I promise that we will be doing this more frequently because we miss you all so much and we're excited to be here. So we're going to kick it off. But before we do that, I want to jump in and let you know who we're reviewing with today. We didn't talk about this beforehand, so let's do some intros. Whoever wants to jump in. Who are ya? Who's talking with us reviewing today?
It's
I guess
me. Nick. I did first. I'm just a guy. It's fine. I'm an animator at the Riot Games. Okay, Nick, you take it away.
Oh.
Nick Matthews, lead animator, champ team for League of Legends.
I'm Alex, animator on the champ team with Nick.
I'm not an animator on the champs team, but I do animate for Valorant. My name is Brendan.
And my name is Lana Vashinsky, and I'm not even an animator anymore. I'm an associate art director. I'm working in research and development, and I'm super excited for the opportunity to talk about animation because it's been a hot minute. So today we are doing some demo reviews. If you've never joined us today, I don't know how to block this spammy thing. We'll figure that out in a second. If you never joined us for demo reel reviews today, there's a couple things that we do. One, we're going to limit the time so that we can get through as many as we can because we're unfortunately not having the ability to be here all night, even though we would love to be. So there's about 10 minutes each. I'll literally set a timer on my watch. Two, we do say demo reel reviews, but what we mean is animation reviews, and I should probably start putting them in the thing. So we have a combination of reels and individual animation pieces. All is good. We're here to talk animation. Very exciting. For demo reel reviews, though, we usually play it once through with audio, and then we give sort of initial impressions about the demo reel, and then hone in on a singular piece to give feedback just on the one piece. Because we can't possibly do them all in the whole thing, but we'll give you overall impressions, what we think you should cut, what we think you should keep, etc. And I think that's it. Oh, and for this round, because it's been a minute, because we had so many, we are focusing on work that we've never seen before. So if you submitted a reel, even if we've seen like one or two of the same pieces before, we're going fully fresh here, babies. Fully fresh meat for the fresh rats that we're in here. And that's where we're at. That's what we're doing. And I think, did I miss anything? Does anybody have anything that they think we should say before we dive in? Questions in the chat before we dive in?
Hope you're ready for this fire. I don't know.
Yeah. I love it. That's the energy we want to go in for. And we are going to go in. Rats, we got the first one in our list. I'll transition us over here into our two-pane window. From I Am Cunin. Is it too late to submit? For this round, it's too late to submit to probably get on the stream just because there are so many. But we do have an excellent community of folks who give each other feedback, even if we aren't in there giving each other feedback all the time. Right up there, discord.gg/v little v little q big K big U little Y big F little V. Really catchy hook there. But please join our community. And be part of the wonderful folks who are always giving each other amazing feedback in the Discord. And with that, let's do it to it. I got my audio set up. I'm starting the sync. Rats, make sure that you start the sync at the top, otherwise you're not going to be in it. I know there was like a little bugs earlier. And also don't forget that you control your own audio. So if it gets loud, you can turn it on down. And let's begin.
water. Okay. We have Pellegrino, Perrier, Aquapana, Voss.
I'll just take tap.
The Aquapana is the best.
Okay, I'll have that.
Okay.
All right. Turning off the audio here.
I like the music.
I do. I like the music too. I
I'm
know
also going to turn it off though, but I like it.
it can be like a contentious thing, especially I think among this group, but I do like the music, good vibes. If you got it, make it good, and I think it's good. Looking for initial thoughts of the overall real composition for who is this? Julian. Initial thoughts. I always have some, so I'll just say a couple if the rest of the rats need a second to sort of get through it. I think you have like a good variety of different pieces in your reel in general, from like an acting thing to like more physical things to like an individual action. There's like a decent variety in general. All of your pieces sort of have like a smudginess to them or like a looseness to them that I think you can really tighten up. And so whichever piece we talk about, I can dive more into that. I also think your like title card, very lame note. It's there. I'm commenting on it because I always do. Your title cards, this one like sticks and then there's no audio and no motion for such a long time. I thought that the stream is bugged. So just, it doesn't have to be that long. It can be super tight. On, off, let the music come in, make it a whole composition if it's going to be a whole composition.
I like the mechanics. I think the mechanics are strong overall. I think the poses could be pushed, and I miss in the real two character shot. I think it's what you're missing right now. The acting could be improved in terms of the shapes, but your mechanics are solid. But I am missing a two character interaction on the real.
It's a good place to take it forward. Off of what's on the plate here, there are kind of like two things that are standing out to me. In this shot, for some reason, I feel that like the eyes are super swimmy and it's very distracting. Like I think that she should lock onto something, maybe do a couple darts, but right now they're kind of swimming in her head. And I'm sure that the controller is locked off and you have it sort of like an aim space. So it's like logically you'd think like, oh yeah, so it's just looking at somewhere and it's sort of doing it. But I feel that right now it just kind of like you lose the pupils a bit here and it just kind of swims around the head a lot. So I think that choosing when the eyes move position is going to just help me to understand what's happening in the all and throughout the piece. The second thing that I feel in this piece is that it feels like it's copied from reference quite a bit. And the reason I can tell is because I kind of want to accelerate through it to make it a little punchier. So I feel that once you do the reference, if you can condense the reference to like 120% speed and then kind of block it out from there and pick when to like strike a pose and stick to it, that you could stick this pose a little bit more and then keep on going. That could help you out just in the long run. Those are my initial two thoughts on everything.
Great thoughts. Also, we do have Julie in the chat. Hello, PachoMeno7. Thank you so much for your submission. I do think that this piece of the Akali here is one of the juicier pieces to dive into. Does anyone have any qualms of this being the piece that we select for our notes? No?
Yeah, no, that's good.
I saw Alex already starting to do some doodling. Do you want to take it away?
No, you can go over first.
Okay. I'm going to just quickly...
One thing I will say that I see like kind of overall that'll probably be like a theme of a lot of this is when we talked about swimminess, I think really like choosing strong key poses to like lead into and like kind of like
We lost your mic, I think, partially through that.
Sorry, the push to talk thing. Yeah, this makes it tough. It's about like picking like really, I think really just strong poses throughout each beat, and like going to each of those. In a lot of ways, so a lot of these just kind of there's a lot of things sort of happening. You sort of pick out where things are, but you really want to like highlight those with strong poses and just let them linger.
Yeah, I fully agree. That is, I think when I said like, in general, there's like a bit of like, I forget exactly the word I use. Now I have the word swimmy stuck in my head, but there's like a smudginess to it because we don't have sort of stick with anything for a really long time, and the poses themselves have like a little bit of what I always think of. If this is the wrong word and maybe not helpful, but like blurring, a lack of clarity. They just could be much stronger poses, like both in like the intent behind them and like how much they're pushed, but also in making sure that those keys really stick. Like this one ends up being really strong, but we so quickly move out of it into sort of this halfway space, and there's so many frames through this whole arc of being in this halfway space that we don't get a chance to like live in some of your cooler space, your cooler spots. And it also begins and ends in like a halfway kind of, like this is like her knees both feel like her hips are sort of pointing this way, but both of her knees feel like they're sort of pointing out this way. And then her shoulder is craned back this way, but the fists are pointed sideways. It's like sort of cheated to camera, sort of not. The pose can't quite decide what it wants to be. And so it leads to like this feeling of ambiguity in what could be like a really, really tight sequence. And in general, I think you could just, oh, my mic is super quiet compared to everybody. Thank you for the note. I will adjust accordingly. Let me know if that's better. I think like taking these and thinking of those key storytelling beats, and just exaggerating them in the extreme of how you flow through them. Like she's coming into this kick. I agree with Brendan said, like it seems drawn from reference because it seems like such an awkward motion, but like there could be a drive here that you add to that you bring to the reference that maybe wasn't there. Like where are her eyes looking? Like what's her target? Why is she doing this kick sequence? Give her a focal point. And I'm like talking a lot and like trying to fix my mic. Give her a focal point and like tighten up some of these poses. Like this one, she's like fully looking away from whatever she's punching. But like even if she isn't just like doing like a sequence like you would out on like a floor at like a competition to show that you know the sequence, I think we would want to see like this arm being really tight and seeing that she is, even if she's sort of looking to one side, getting like keeping a little peek of those eyes, showing her seeming like really, really focused and tight, and this elbow coming around, but probably still like the fist on this side of the body. And we get like twist, but we get also focus. This front leg can come forward and be a lot stronger in like a much more firm like L shape. So we like the knee is leaning a little bit far over the ankle right now. It doesn't quite go past the front of the toe, but it just could be a much firmer shape if she were like sinking a little bit lower into that space, and like doing a little bit more into that, like less far into the twist and more keeping her abs tight to actually make an impact versus just swiping all the way through with the arm consistently bent. I'm talking a lot. Like through this whole action, it comes like around. Her arm never unbends. It never feels like she's actually going to hit anything.
Yeah, I can throw over some poses as well. Even like this one that is very strong, you could still make a little bit more clear on the shapes. I like this leg here. But then when you get to this hand could be a little bit more up here to clear the silhouette. And then you can have maybe the other hand showing the elbow here to break a little bit. And then you have a negative space coming through here. So there's like a very strong pose, like what Lana said, you can hold a little bit more, but also make it more clear. And then just like try to think about every pose and push the angles you have and like the symmetry. It feels very busy right now, and you could probably just simplify. Like any pose that you stop here, you could probably just simplify and just get everything to flow better. Just try to think about like shapes and lines
Yeah, going back to the timing thing, one thing that sort of helps me out, like you do record the reference or you find the reference that you want, but then afterwards I like to do what I call like a sound blocking pass. So I'll go ahead and
Now we lost your audio for a
Oh,
second.
you muted yourself.
so I'll go like boom, boom, like I'll make something with my voice that sounds kind of melodic and exciting, and then I might even grab that audio and put it into Maya of like not even looking at it, and wherever the spikes of audio, that's where the pose is going to hold more. And then I like to sort of craft like choreographies along there, because you could grab the poses from the reference, then you can push the poses, but the timing's a little bit for some reason people tend to copy every frame verbatim from what the reference is, and I feel that this is a good opportunity for you to sort of just go past that and just shape some frames in the transitions and maybe hold the action poses a little bit longer. And a good trick to do that is just to sort of make the sound effects, and then that way you can guide yourself with that.
My watch went off, which means we're gonna have to move on from this reel. But any last thoughts before we get to our next submission?
I have a final thought. Going back to Alex's point, this is a good opportunity also to put a second character that this character is sort of kicking and punching around. So once you polish this up, you can grab your file here and put another maybe shadow version of her there. It's just getting punched around, and then you'll have half of the shot of a two-person shot already.
Excellent tip. Any other folks for a last-minute thought?
I did want to bring up one thing very quickly, just in general about clarity. Just for like when you are playblasting, I prefer Lambert material because this blend is causing the highlights, the gray, to match with the gray in the background. So this shot for me is like harder to read. So just think about clarity for your audience.
Yes, 100%. Much agreed. I feel like my last thought, I know we talked a lot about pose clarity, but consider the start and end of each of your animations and making sure that both of those poses are like the strongest storytelling poses that can live in somebody's minds about who this character is. So even if like you have a couple that are like smudgier through the rest of it, you really want to start and end with it with a bang of appeal. All right, folks, we're going to move on, but can we please get rats in the chat for Julian, aka Pacho Man 07. Really appreciate your submission. Thank you so much for being part of the community, baby. And we are going to get the next reel set up. And while I get this set up, we all get this set up, if there are any questions from folks in the chat, we'd be happy to scope it up. And if you're new, rats in the chat, you've already got it. It's just type in RAT in the chat. We don't have emotes. We have dreams of having emotes, but you know what? We simply don't have them. We love it. We love to see it. All right. Our next demo reel is not actually a demo reel at all. It is a single shot. Is everybody set up and ready? I'm also 99.9% positive that the animator submitted it is in the chat. Hello, Schnoggy. Welcome. All right. I don't know if there's audio. I believe that this shot is in the blocking phase right now. And Rats, you ready?
Yes.
Let's do it.
I love the rig.
Yeah, this like low poly tracer.
That's so good.
Super cute. All right. I always talk first, so somebody stop me if you got a thought.
Yeah. So I think that the blocking of the character works for me. Like that's not my Like, it looks fun. I understand the actions that she's taking. I know where she's going. It looks super fun. What I think needs more help is the camera.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing to think about is that you might want to use as least keys as possible to try to get to where you're going. So right now, eliminate anything that you don't need for the shot. So right now you have the shot, the composition of the shot is really good. And I'm gonna randomly pick another point where I think that, okay, here's the next keyframe of the shot. Next keyframe of the shot, let's just say that it's here. So from going from here to here, you don't need a ton to do. You can just sort of ease out and just get to here. And right now we're kind of going left, and then we're jarring, we're kind of dodging something here a little bit, and we're kind of going around where it can just sort of just easily just creep forward and get to where it's going without any extra things in the way. Then afterwards, it does this cool sort of 360 on the character, which is cool. Like, this is a cool move. And what I would try to do is lock your Z direction of it. So lock the Z of the camera so the camera doesn't Dutch up, because I don't think you necessarily need that right now to get to where you're going, because you're going over here and it feels like it's almost parallel to the, like, we don't need a ton of, just not even the framing wise, just motion wise. Like, it's just kind of rotating in. It's like doing a bunch of extra stuff that's preventing me from following the camera. So I think your first homework is try to grab a lot of the keys that you have in the camera and just try to see which ones you can live with and try to eliminate all the rest of them.
Mm-hmm. Anam Flow Academy in the chat says Brendan is layout master. Love hearing his thoughts. Brendan is layout master. I think next week internally he's giving us a lecture on camera stuff, so he's definitely an authority here. We love to see it. And also before coming here was literally like layout was your whole thing, right? So
that was my job.
Yeah, it's great. I'd be interested, just because you're in the chat, is there like a plot reason for some of the stutteriness of the camera? Like, I can't tell if the camera is intentionally supposed to be like a character, but one of the things I think about whether or not it's supposed to be like the POV of a person or like a camera doing like an interesting craning thing. The way to make it particularly parsable by a person is thinking about how that camera would actually capture a shot like this if it were like a live action scene. So if the environment here were a live action plate that was created and you're just animating the camera on top of it, like there's still like a way that the camera would capture that motion that would limit it in certain ways, and I think would like feed into a lot of the stuff that Brendan's talking about when he's saying, oh, it's going to lock the Z here. Like, you wouldn't just have it sort of be really glidey and everywhere. It would, if it's supposed to be handheldy, like, this is a thing, and this is like a personal pet peeve even when I see it in live action, so maybe Brendan/anybody be like, Lana, shut up. But like, if it's supposed to be handheldy, what is that trying to tell us a story? Is the person who's holding this camera then also jumping off the building and like doing their own spectacular set of moves to get all the way back here? Like, I'm wondering what the intent is behind that handheldiness versus something that has a crane that would have fewer keys, would be smoother, but limited in other different ways. I would really think about like who's holding the camera and why, and what are they holding it out of? Like, is that off base, Brendan? Now I'm like,
no.
learning.
Even if we justify it and say this is the drone shot, right? Like,
yes. Yeah.
Even if we justify it as like, okay, here's a drone shot, then what you need to put in your head is, okay, what is the path the drone would fly? And it's not like the drone driver is going to drive all the way around, because it's going to make us a little bit dizzy as the viewer. So you got to pick sort of like, well, here's the path that the drone's going to fly, and then it's just going to hover there for a minute and sort of track as Tracer's sort of jumping around, and then the drone's going to shoot back and follow her to this pose. Mm-hmm. But the camera, you have to justify it being in the physical environment, even if it is flown by a drone. You just have to think about, okay, the camera is being operated in this way, and this is, as a camera operator, That's how I would do it. And if you're not sure, because you said here this is your first time animating the camera, what I would do is I would research or just look at whatever cool movie that has a cool drone shot in it and just see how the shot feels and just try to imitate that in 3D. And it'll boil down to just add less keys at the end of it.
So I have a couple of thoughts about like the end of the animation, but I want to give these other rats a chance to chime in if they've got some thoughts.
Well, my thought is it's pretty important. Like, we want to give feedback on animation, but we spent all this time talking about camera because, like, we are the audience looking through the camera, so the camera can be very distracting. So it's like, why? Whenever I approach a shot, I'm like, why am I doing this? Is it to get better at animation or to practice camera work? So, I mean, that's just like camera work is very complex and takes a lot of practice. So it's like, yeah, if you're a student, for me personally, I would be like, get better at animation first and then worry about camera later. But if it's something you're passionate about, keep going with it. But as you can see, camera work that isn't perfect can be very distracting.
Mm-hmm. Excellent point. And like doing both at the same time is literally doubling the amount of time, or rather having the amount of resources you have to finish a shot to the same degree of polish. Excellent point.
Yeah, part of what occurs to me, sorry, just real quick.
No,
Just part of what occurs to me timing wise is just and again, this relates to the camera, but as the camera pulls down from here, I get the idea of like she's like sort of outpacing the camera, seeing her, and you're trying to like kind of catch up at the end. But my gut tells me it's going to feel too slow. So you'll want to like kind of think about having that, because that's going to happen because here in blocking it's the intent reads, but I think be cognizant of that as you sort of go through, and then maybe think about just from a pulled back shot of what that's going to look like, and then that can like kind of inform how fast you want to try to track it or lag behind.
Yeah, I agree with Nick on that point for sure.
Alex, what were you going to say?
Oh no, you can go ahead.
The last thing I would sort of say, we have dwindling time here, is I know one of the questions that you had in the Discord was like, does it feel like Tracer? I think that it does. I think there are some key like acting beats here that you could infuse some more Tracer-ish moments into. Her coming up and then putting her arm all the way up there, like this is a bit of an awkward pose. I can't quite tell from this angle because she's so poly, but it kind of looks like her arm is up, but she's bent over, but her leg is crossed in front, and this other leg is coming back this way, and her arm is across her leg. There's like a weird sort of kind of happening through this pose that I'm having a hard time reading, that I would kind of expect it to be more like a, almost in the other direction if you're going to do anything like that. With like the hip sort of jutting out versus like, it kind of looks like a sensual lean against, like when you're like leaning against the thing this way, it's kind of like a ooh. And then if you like want like the sassy Tracer vibe, I think it would actually be like the leaning against it, but the hip would jut the other way. And then that's more of like the Bugs Bunny, right? And like the Tracer sort of salute moment through here. I don't know what like this sign is that she's jumping around, but it also, I think, is a moment that if you wanted to, because of like the shape that she's leaning against, and like the camera angle is kind of tilted like this, it's like makes it a little disorienting. You could just have her like in profile if you wanted to, as like something interesting and different that she's doing. Instead of needing her to like face the camera, you could have her like, oh, she's so quick, she jumped into this thing, she's got time to sort of kill, that she doesn't have to, she's like waiting for you to catch up, almost like a Sonic like foot tapping moment. At the end, like she kind of freezes, but the camera keeps going, which is sort of like, Tracer, are you okay? Did you glitch out? What happened, girl? Like, it's not like, it doesn't feel like into like the slow motion moment, like a play of the game. It feels like she's just kind of like broken because the camera doesn't match what's happening there. It has to be like a mutual slowdown of all the things in the scene. And something, if you really wanted to like tracer it up, you could do it. I don't think you have to, because I think this is like a play of the game type moment, but you could have her at the end be here and like see ya and like do her like time warp back up somewhere else if you wanted to. That's like an extra thing that would not make it play of the gamey, but maybe like a more interesting. I feel like I see a ton of play of the game stuff, and finding a way to make your shot stand out from other people doing like Overwatch specific things, which are often like play of the game, having these little character beats that is just a cool scene that you've created versus like a completely direct one-to-one might be an interesting take on it. You can just ignore me. The play of the game will be effective. Just a thought.
Yeah, I like the play of the game with this extremely low poly thing, though. It is
That's true.
That's a twist. That's a twist. I like it.
Good point.
There's a question in the chat here about camera resources.
Yes.
And I'll do that after we're done with reviewing.
My watch did just buzz for this one. So any last thoughts here for this? And then we will get some questions while we transfer reels.
Go for it, Nick. Yeah, no,
Just one quick thought was just this pose here as she turns. Like this, I think the pose that you start with is good, but then this one is just her arms very much inside her silhouette, and we're kind of like not quite getting the character mode here. Is she like sort of surprised, happy to see you, sly, doing something? Yes, that kind of thing. Anyway, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
My last comment was going to be up here. Like, I like this angle. I just kind of want her to be like way up here, just to like have her outside of Big Earl's thing.
Agreed.
I don't know. Like, now that you're orchestrating this, just make sure that like we can read it 100%.
Yeah. Aligned. Any other last thoughts from these rats?
The resource that I want to shout out is shotdeck.com. So that one is like a library of just cinematic shots. And what's cool about it is that you load up, like you select the shot you like, the lookup, and it'll tell you what camera, lens it used, what type of lighting it used. It just has like all the metadata of the camera and what they used on there. And it's really cool if you just want to do a cool composition. You don't have to you can just copy the composition. You don't necessarily need to copy the context of it, but a lot of those shots are just kind of really cool. So I get a ton of ideas from shotdeck.com. So I want to shout them out.
Right on. I also see another question in the chat. We'll get to that in one moment. But first, can we get rats in the chat for Schnoggy from the chat? And I'm so sorry I keep saying your username. My memory is horrible. I know your real name. It's in the bank, but it is lost in this moment. So thanks for the shot. Thank you so much for the submission and being a great part of our community. We really appreciate you. While we transition reels here, we have a question here from first-time chatter. Welcome, Almarici. When you choose gameplay animation, when you choose to add a gameplay animation to your portfolio, should you animate camera like camera shake on heavy punches or falling to the ground, or should you leave that camera steady so your animation can be seen as you really animated it?
Ooh, that's an interesting one.
The camera, just do it.
Yeah, I do think don't over rely on it. Like be classy with it. Like don't go crazy. But oftentimes in production, people will emphasize animations to help kind of get the punch, because there might be something like a camera shake that you could do in a game if you really want to, or VFX will sometimes make things feel punchier. So, trying to sell your team on like, this is the feel I want, can be effective. You just don't want to rely on it so much that you don't attend to the animation.
Mm-hmm.
I say if it's going to add to it, do it. And if you went too far, then it's going to subtract from what you're doing. So, yeah.
And if your camera isn't singing, the only thing we'll think, to Tyler's point earlier, is, man, you really could have spent that time. Sorry, if your animation isn't singing and the camera's animated, all I'm gonna think is you should have spent that time on the animation and not the camera. Same with music in your demo reel. If the music is tight and the compositing's great, I'm here for it. If your animation in the demo reel is not, I'd be like, you should have cut the editing and spent the time on the animation. It's like a difficult balance, but a lot of that is just like self-awareness as well. And coming in, make yourself vulnerable to reviews like this and like to your peers and basically anybody who will look at your stuff, they can help give you the barometer, because it can be hard to sort of regulate yourself sometime and know where that bar is. But my one thing is I'm okay with camera shake, but not if you have motion blur on. I'm actually motion blur in general 99.9% of the time. I'm like, get that shit out of here, because I can't see your animation if it's a blurry blob. If you got your motion blur on, you see you got something to hide, and I'm gonna find it. So that's my thoughts.
I've heard you say that a couple times. The truth is, I don't know how to turn it off in my personal project.
And we're here. We're vulnerable. We're learning. Wait, sorry. You don't know how to turn it off, and you're giving us
in Unreal. Yeah, no,
next week. Right.
In Unreal.
Oh, in Unreal. Something tells me that's a quick Google search, my friend.
I know. But you're always saying, like, what are you hiding? I'm hiding my knowledge of not knowing where the checkbox is to turn it off.
I love that. I love it. If anybody knows, hit us in the Discord. And with that, we're moving right into our next piece here. That the name, I'm pretty sure the name in the document here, Tyler, that's their username. Yes. The third one down here, because it's not in here. We're looking at another singular shot.
Yeah, it is. Oh, it's just the whatever the name is in the sync sketch.
In the sync sketch, it is LN20.
Right below that, there's the name.
I don't have that. I just see
Oh.
LN20.
Me too.
Luminous.
Mr. LN20.
Oh, I
Let's do
see.
it.
And then the eye, if you hold mouse over the eye.
Okay, here we go.
Sadat.
All right, we're gonna transition. It's been a minute, y'all. We're all learning together. Okay, transitioning over. Here we have my pronunciation. I'm so sorry, everybody. Sekander Sadat, aka LN20. Let us know if you're in the chat. We'd love to know if we can ask you questions about your piece. But if I recall correctly, we're looking at another singular shot with somebody who is they found a line that they liked, and they've animated the body, not using any reference. They're just trying some things, and they are curious on how to approach lip sync. Is my memory correct on this one? I think so. I'm setting the timer, and let's do it to it.
You guys are making me nauseous. Not in a good way. You guys are making me nauseous. Not in a good way.
All right. My initial thoughts is the background is so busy, so loud, and like an animated moment that is dead still. If you're focusing on a lip sync, get that background out of here. It's clearly like a shout out to something that this character's from, but I don't think it's selling. It is going to make your job harder with the lip sync with the background that you got. So that's my initial take, is that it's very, very busy and very, very bright. I think we have to sort of keep it at like one bar on the dialogue here, because the intent is that
Making me
we're
nauseous.
hearing some of it. So I'm sorry, everybody,
Not in a good way.
that you're going to hear this on loop.
You guys
But
are
you know,
making me
it's the
nauseous.
animation experience.
Not in a good way.
Right, Rats,
You
who wants
guys
to
are
kick it
making
off?
me nauseous. Not in a good way.
The
You
lip
guys
sync
are
master
making
in the
me
chat here.
nauseous.
Oh, I haven't joined the sync, so you guys aren't seeing it.
Yes. Not in a good way. You guys are making me nauseous.
I think the movements are a little bit overdone, like how much the hands are going up here and then down and then up again. I think it could simplify a little bit and focus more on the facial expression. Especially because you want to give a lot of attitude here with the lip sync and the expression. So you could still go like back and forth with the head, but just don't go so far with the hands and then up again. In this pose here, maybe try to make something a little more dramatic. Maybe the hand like this, not in a good way, and then like the fan. I think it'll be a little bit more funny.
Mm-hmm.
Nauseous. Maybe like looking away or something. Like, and maybe the hand is like here on the forehead. I think this will help also with the line of action of the body. And then like not in a good way. It could have a little bit more personality. Like not in a good way. Instead of just like shrug, more like not in a good way. Maybe lower this arm here. Just like not in a good way and kind of put the head more over this side. The background it is very busy. It would be good to either take it out or like lose the saturation of it.
Mm-hmm.
And but yeah, those are like my initial thoughts.
I really agree with that. I think like these options for acting choices, like it almost feels like you were like, okay, I'm doing a mid shot, but I really want those arms in it. So the arms got to stay up. They can't dip below the camera. So she's kind of got like the cactus arms feeling the whole time that she's in it. But I also think there's not like a sort of a big emotional gear change moment where she's like, you're making me nauseous. I really like the acting choice of making it like way over dramatic, because like the twist is that there would be a good nausea that she could experience, and so she's not actually feeling that dramatic about it. There's nausea she'd be willing to experience in a good way. So it's kind of like an accusatory moment, or like now she's like kind of peeved at you. Like there could be a moment where she's exasperated by you and she just kind of feels like I mean, she feels like what's like is this like dating myself with these references? Either like Anchor or Talladega Nights guy, like I don't know what to do with my hands, or like from 30 Rock where he's like, can I get 2 mugs? She just kind of seems like she doesn't know what's going on up here. And so having that acting beat, like I know you said you're not using reference, you're just going with the flow, but this is where I'd be like, probably worth finding some reference to see what you would maybe more naturally do with your arms and what you can sort of exaggerate if you were trying to act out this moment. Because I would love to see her sort of leave with like a withering stare of like, not in a good way, as if that's my greatest desire and you didn't give it to me, so thanks for nothing.
I think for the lip sync, depending on how true to source anime you want to do it, you could potentially just do like 4 or 5 shapes and just sort of live in those shapes. So if it's like, this is a good mouth closed shape, but when she goes like nauseous, you could just do like one open, and you don't need to do like enunciate every single thing that you are doing like this. Just like, oh, you guys, with the A, it's like, you can do like a small open, you guys are making me nauseous. And that's it. Like, it's just like 5 poses and it just kind of lives in it. And since the art style lends itself for simplification, I think that'll work in your favor.
That's a really good point.
It's actually, and anime does go like pretty, like obviously a lot farther with that, but that's like good advice just across the board for lip sync, is like, remember that like a lot of stuff is happening within broad shapes. What we kind of register are just like these there was a really great book on it. I wish I could remember it. But yeah, you do. It's people. This is what you see a lot with like lip sync. In the beginning, is everyone trying to like hit every sound with every lip motion, but they all end up building off of each other, and some things are part of broader lip motions and stuff. But yeah,
Was that book Stop Staring?
is that the one where he talks about that? Yeah.
Yeah, so just go for it. Like if you're apprehensive to start the lip sync, just put some poses in, and then jump off the deep end. I think you're ready for it.
Yeah, I agree. I also love that I'm like trying to do this shitty drawing over there, and Alex is just like, just draw it over the character. You can just do that. I
Yeah,
like
well,
that she
That's
has
another,
like
that's another
this
final thought
prop.
too. Is just
Sorry, go ahead, Nick.
sorry. I just maybe this is kind of be the same thing. I was just thinking about the physical space. She has like that one pose. It looks like she's leaning on something, and there's nothing there to actually lean on. It'd be good to like either reconsider the pose or make sure that that prop is there, that furniture is there.
She also has like this fan, and you have like such an opportunity space there, IMO, where she could like snap it shut, like on that moment. I'm doing a really awful job trying to draw it, but being able to use that prop in a way rather than keeping it as a fan the whole time is like a really great exclamation point on whatever you choose to do here. Alrighty. And then I know your question was about like, oh, how do I go about doing the lip sync? So we've had some thoughts. My question for the rats here is, do you just go straight ahead and just like animate mouth shape after mouth shape? That is like your keys for your mouth, or do you have a strategy for how you start working in the syllables for everything as a whole? I know some people are like married to like the GoPro face cam. I think that makes me live in an uncanny, crazy space when I do that. Does anybody have any hot tips for like cranking through some lip sync?
I usually what I do is a jaw pass with just like the main syllables, just like opening and closing. And I don't like the GoPro face cam. I like seeing the shapes for the camera. Depends on how you block. If you're blocking without the expressions, then you can just do like a jaw pass and then you start putting the expressions and then you go over and like break down the lip sync. That's how I would approach. If I block with the expressions, then I try to do like the main poses with the shape of the lip sync, exaggerated A, exaggerated E, etc. And then I just try to do like the jaw pass considering those shapes with like some breakdowns in between those main poses. But that's usually how I go with.
Yeah, I do a little bit less technical. I just like find a cool shape. Like if I see the drawing or the pose and I can hear that person saying it off of that drawing or the pose, then I'm kind of heading in the right direction with that. And then any major beat, I'll do those shapes first, and then I'll try to go in between the shapes as needed. I don't know if that made sense or not, but yeah.
I think that does. All right, Rats, any final thoughts here?
No.
All right. Can
Fun
we
to see some cool characters.
Yeah, post the update if you keep working on it. Post the update in the Discord. It'd be so great to see what you end up with. Can we get Rats in the chat here for, Seconder. I really appreciate you submitting your work. Rats. And while we transition here to our next demo reel, we had a great question in the chat from I copied it over here and I didn't copy the username. I think it was Delico or Delico. Question for the Rats: would creating a game demo in Unreal Engine showcasing animations and blueprints serve as an animation show reel if you attach a small snippet of the animations done in Maya?
They're good. Yes.
Do you mean like a playable thing we'd load up, or I think if you demonstrate that you've implemented in a game, it's a good thing. Probably if we had to like actually load it up, it might be a little bit of a tough thing because oftentimes reviewing reels happens in a chunk in like a room somewhere. We don't always have the resources to do that, but it is cool.
Delico says yes, playable. I agree. +1 to Nick in that. I think offering it as an option for the reviewer to experience if they have the time and the ability to do so is fantastic. But I think you gotta also have a demo reel. You have to show those pieces because in the end, being able to say like here are those chops and here's like a way to prove it, super bonus. I will say a lot of companies also get very weird about like, oh, I'm just gonna open up this exe. I hope it's not a virus. Can be like a little sus. So Having the demo reel showing the animation, just the animation, will be really important, no matter what. But I love submitting it as option. I think I've talked a lot on here about how somebody did submit that once, and it was so cool. I loved it. I'm here for it, but it has to be a partnered thing and an option thing, not the only option you give people, or you're just going to take yourself out of the running. And if you're even able to like put it in a web browser or something so that they don't have to download it and possibly open a .exe, which can be very, very spooky, that would be probably even better than anything else that you could possibly submit. Sorry, as a partner versus actually downloadable install file, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So them's my thoughts. But like any way you can like prove like, hey, not only is my animation great, but I made it in game. Yes. But like the other things that we said, I also think that if you submit it as an EXE and we play it and the animations are bad, we would say all together now, you should have spent that time on the animation. So
Yeah.
that's my thoughts.
And if you record it, if you screen record your game, like it's obvious that somebody's playing it, right? Like if it's an unreal, like you don't have to. That's what I understood. It's like, oh, like a reel as a reel. So I think you could play it, and we can enjoy you playing it, and you can showcase your animation through it.
Yeah. Show the blueprints in the corner while you have recording of your playthrough will be probably just as effective. All right. Thank you so much for that question. We're going to move into our next reel.
Actually, my apologies. I have to step out for a meeting, but thank you very much, everybody.
No worries. Rats in the chat for Nick Matthews, everybody. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. We're going over to Zach Hoskin. And Rats, are you ready? I got my volume up. Yeah. All right, let's do it.
Yeah.
All right, some fun stuff. Zach and VTuber, welcome. Zach's in the chat. Rats, any initial thoughts on the old demo reel? And I'm gonna get the timer going.
I really like it. A lot of strong pieces. Presentation-wise, I think this shot is too dark, hard to read. It was my only, like when I was like, can't even see. And I wouldn't start with this one personally. I think you have stronger pieces, but that's just my preference. It is fun, but it does get a little bit long, and then it gets more interesting here for me. So that's just personal.
Yeah, you even repeat that. Like it might be slightly different, but for the people that are just kind of like viewing one and done. Oh wait, my dog is ripping up something. Give me 1 second. Hurry. Take it away.
On your thought, because I think I was gonna say the same thing. Unless Tyler, you go. I see you scrubbing.
You can go.
The thought, I had the same thought as Brendan in that, like, I know this is technically a different shot, but I was actually like, are those the same movie? Is that an earlier version of that piece? This, even if you're going to include this piece, I agree with what Alex said, that having it first, it's like very long, and there's more interesting pieces. This is like way more polished and successful than this thing that's almost identical. Like, I would just take this one out of there. It's not showing anything new. It's showing like a less polished version of something that you already had a better version of. So it just, no matter what you do right after this, just cut it, just get it out of there. And so easy because you don't have that music behind it. You don't have to recomp it. Just chop it. That was like my first thought from this for sure. And And that this last piece that you end with, I think, is not only pretty dark, but it's also like pretty weak. And then like this whole motion is so linear. The poses are so funny. Like the whole thing is like a little silly. I would probably, I mean, you can either return to it and like zhuzh it up or just nix it. It like made me giggle out loud because it's like,
It's pretty silly.
I don't know if it's as like impactful in the right way as like the capstone to your demo reel. You have really strong pieces in here, and I think this one could be good, but it's so soft and so linear. It just gives me a giggle. It gives me a giggle. Any more overall thoughts of the whole thing before I pick a piece to pick apart?
Yeah, before you pick a piece, there's some attention to detail on like, hey, here's the ground sort of moving around, and this might be an asset. It might not be an asset. You might have hand animated this. I don't know, but it adds a lot to this. I do agree that this isn't the strongest piece, so you could potentially cut this or rework it. But I find that this run is pretty interesting. It's just kind of weird because like these guys are kind of green screened and this perspective doesn't change. So what I would maybe do is grab some of these stones that are over here on this shot and then just have like a little stone kind of going back in parallel spot in this 3D one here, just kind of looping around, and then you can have sort of faded, like a faded square background. I'm not sure, like, and then the rocks could just sort of like appear and disappear over there. And then you can have these guys, like, maybe the composition is kind of odd. Maybe we can have like this 3D one sort of over here and then the 4 other views over here. This just seems like, it seems kind of weird to have them floating and the background's like a play blast background, but it's like, it kind of doesn't end up being like a cohesive art piece to showcase your animation. It's just kind of like weird.
It's a little disorienting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Also in the chat, Anomade, those attack and game animation pieces look so great. I love this piece. This follow through feels awesome. Yeah, really, like I really love this piece a lot.
And this background's great because it's the Super Smash Brothers back. Like, this is just great. Yeah, that worked.
Easy piece. All right. Any other final thoughts? Even like what piece do y'all want to look at for animation reviewing?
Just a final thought. If this is in Unreal, it would be good to put like the Unreal logo here to show that it's like an in-game asset, and the rest like in Maya Playblast. Just because I know this is like the default Unreal box thing, but I don't know if you implemented that. If you use Unreal just for rendering, exporting, it would be good to have like a description of how this was exported. If you want to highlight that, if it's just like it doesn't matter, it's like Maya, then it's okay. But I'm curious if this is implemented or it's just like a play blast.
Everything was done in Maya, says Zakin.
Cool.
And then the last thing I'd say for this piece, if you just flash this red every time she hits it, it would be really impactful for like hit. Like we could see the rhythm, feel the rhythm, and it would get more impact. It actually took me until looking at my screen over here while Alex was talking to be like, oh, there's actually like I knew it was there, but I didn't realize how much this thing was like bouncing around. Have the little red flash really feel those impacts. It'd be like a nice little touch there. All right. Which piece do y'all want to talk about for a more specific anime reviewing? Any strong preferences? I feel like, Brendan, you're leaning towards this last shot.
No. Well, we have Zachem in the chat. Is there anything that he wants?
Yeah, if you had to pick one of these pieces, which one would it be?
This one seems pretty strong. Maybe we pick something else. Or Alex could polish this one to death. Mr. Polish.
Or we can pick this one.
That one? Yeah, I like it.
Wait, this one? I would take this Katana Kid or the cat ninja person. Shot.
Me too. I'd do either one of those.
Zach, you have T-1 second. Samurai Kid. Okay.
Okay.
That was good. I literally said 1 second. It popped up in the chat. Great job. All right. Sorry, Sael. Almost there. All right. Let's bookmark it. Thanks. All right. What do we got? So I think it might just be this character model. His neck is so long, it makes some odd poses sometimes. Like this one in
Tiny bit.
particular feels really like stuck out there, but I can't tell if it's just the character model or if the pose is a little weird.
I think it's the model. It has a long neck.
Yeah. But I think that because of like the precision of this moment, I know I talk a lot about precision and I talk about a lot about like focusing on your target. And so sorry, y'all, if I ever, you can see my like personal tastes coming through if you like stick around for like any number of these reviews. But like through some of these moments, like here, he like, it's like believable that he's staring at it, but like this is so strong when he's like staring right at this cube. And as he comes through here, we sort of lose his nose and lose his eyes because we're seeing the top of his head. It would be good to keep this little triangular shape through some of these actions. Because like right here, again, he doesn't seem like he's looking at what he's slicing at all. And then we completely lose it. I think being able to slice through and as much as possible, try and cheat that head back so that we get the eyes really focused, especially because he's supposed to be like, it's like so... Anytime I see like katana, these kind of motions, there's like a precision and like a training that I think is implicit with like the type of character that's doing these actions, that when you start like losing the character focus and literally having them like look kind of like down and over here, it like removes me from like the connection of that moment in a way that, and it just sort of like, then you have to like add more motion in places that you could have been more like could have had some time to like really let it sing. So like the character comes in through here, he's in kind of an awkward squat, his silhouette gets kind of muddy between his arms and his legs here, and he's looking the wrong direction, and so you have to move him all the way out before he dashes out, and his arm is sort of already moving, when if you had his face like sort of in the right spot, you could sink like it a little bit lower in this pose, so that you even have like one leg kind of reaching. This arm could be out. The head could be tucked a little so that he's like keeping as much in being able to look at this thing as possible. Even if it's like cheated a little, you don't have to like really have him like crane because that'll be awkward in its own way. But you can stay in this pose for longer. And then as if you have that front leg extended, you would be able to like lean, like you have his feet even sliding backwards because like you clearly want to get like this lunging pose, but you don't have the space. You could have him move and like shift his weight onto his front leg. You can keep the sword back so we get a really good long look at that blade and in like an interesting way to like, what's it called? It's like that anticipation is just like building that moment. And then you can have him swing through and slice through like take out a couple more frames. So then he slices through like lightning fast, and it'll just add that precision element to this whole action that feels like a little bit like lazy by comparison. That was a lot of talking. Sorry, folks.
That was all valuable info.
Rats?
Or I could go briefly over the sword. Whenever characters have props or weapons, like you really got to keep an eye on like arcs, especially the tip, and then clarity. Like through here, when the sword is kind of perpendicular to camera, I'm losing it, especially since it's blending in with the color of the background. So just keep that in mind. You could cheat it because when it's flat, you can see you get that flash, but if you just keep that color or just change the color of the background so you can see it more. And like this slash is also kind of perpendicular to camera. Like if you're gonna have a smear and then make it really quick, like Lana said, have a like a really nice arc so we can see that. And if it is really fast, it feels like it's easing in too much. It's just like slowly easing in. I want that snap, the overshoot and snap.
Yeah, great notes. It looks like your smears are being generated like from the sword. I don't know if you're like actually putting cards in there. It looks like it's just coming from the blade. But I think, yeah, some work on like really calculating where you put them in and why would be effective. Alex or Brendan?
All in all, this is like there's some really cool stuff in here, and like there's a lot of knowledge behind what you're doing. Like it's a very good step in the right direction. Like it has a lot of energy. It's fun. Yeah, I'd just be repeating Lana's notes of like I kind of want to see his face more. But all in all, you have some pretty good stuff here. Should be pretty proud of this animation. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah. +1.
Yeah, just small little polish details. If you really go over frame by frame, the hand here is popping a little bit, these frames, and the arc is not so clean. And then when you get here, just the forearm is a little bit broken. Isolated, just like the very small details. I have one very personal comment. You don't need to address, and I want everyone's opinion on this, but I would actually flip this shot and make it come from the left to the right. That is just personally for me, because of the Western culture, it makes more sense. The character attacking from the screen left to the screen right. But that's very personal.
Interesting. I thought you were saying for a second that you'd like flip it so that like as he's sort of dashing this way, we're getting his face.
That would actually be a good.
Shot.
That'd be kind of cool too.
Yeah, that would be cool too. Maybe I meant that.
All of the above. All right. I am going to move us along.
Good job.
Yeah, excellent job. Like when we're like debating, okay, which one of these shots is the best one to give notes to, and it's not like all of us are sort of honing in on this. Really excellent work. Thank you so much for your submission. Can we get rats in the chat for Zach Hoskin, Zach and VTuber in the chat? Much appreciate. Thank you so much for your submission. And now rats, I know, oops, let's get our faces back. We got a question in the chat. How's everybody feeling mood wise? We usually go till about 6:30. It's 6:12. We want to do one more, two more? Thumbs up. All right. So while we transition, we got a question from 083. Does anyone have focus or discipline advice? I feel like I'm super enthusiastic to block out an animation, but then when I have to really figure out the fine details or commit to the choices, I feel my productivity or focus slow down dramatically. Any thoughts?
Yeah, just join the club. This happens to all of us. Yeah, you just gotta power through it, and everybody has their way of doing it, but it happens to all of us. Kind of reach a muddy phase of the animation where nothing looks great and everything's sort of kind of trucking along, and yeah, you just have to keep on going, and maybe it works to do like lists or timers, or maybe reward yourself after completing a certain task with something. But yeah, just know that you're not the only one. It happens to all of us. And if you want to do it for a living, it's just something you have to live with. So it just becomes part of your day-to-day, the battle.
I could honestly do an entire talk about this. I have, like Brandon said, I think rewarding yourself, like for me, when I was a student working on a reel, I'd be like, if I work on a shot for an hour, I give myself a point system. If I apply to a job, I get points. If I complete entire shot, I get points, and then I can spend those points to reward myself with things. And for me, a really big motivator is pick one thing you really want to learn, keep it short, so that way your turnover is a lot faster and you're more focused and you know what you want to work on. And then my last one is, why do you want to do it? For me, what motivates me the most is if I'm doing something for somebody else. So if I'm like, I'm doing the shot for somebody else, or if I'm working on a team with somebody else, those are the two things that motivate me the most to get something finished.
Love that. Thank you so much, Tyler. I find that like when I hear things like when I have to really like commit and like do all the details. It feels like it gets exhausting to me. I'm like, are you making the right choices by way of the specific things you're trying to tackle? If you're like, I'm in detail line for a million years, I'm like, well, how long is the piece that you're working on? How long, like, what is the size of the thing that you're working on? Because if you're working on something that's short and sweet, even a character that has a bunch of little bits and bobs on it, like if you have a really complicated rig, do a simpler shot. If you have a really simple rig, use that for your more complicated work until it becomes those little detaily things that make you feel unfocused and like what make you want to stop, like sort of stop what you're doing, become sort of second nature, or you have tools to deal with secondary. Those are the kind of things that I always felt really worn down by. Like when I was going to school, we'd do an animation. It'd be like, you have 14 weeks on one animation. I cannot fathom working on a single animation for 14 hours, let alone 14 weeks. What in the heck? Is crazy. So if you're like getting bogged down in the details, simplify. Do something smaller and don't think, oh, I'm doing worse because I'm doing something smaller. I love what Tyler said about picking one thing and focusing on it. And I think that works for like broad hobbies, but I think it also works for like tiny exercises. Oh, I want to work on my weight shift. Okay, just do something small for weight shift. Oh, I want to work on my body mechanics. Okay, try a punch, then try a flip. Don't do, oh, I'm going to do a punch flip, jump over that thing like crazy obstacle course. Rein it in. 083 says, wonderful advice, thanks. I'm super glad to hear it's relatable. I've had multiple anim jobs in the industry, and it's still very easy to think it's just a me thing. It's not just a you thing.
Nope.
Can we get rats in the chat for anybody who thinks it's a them thing? I'm going to type a big RATS on our behalf as I move us into our next demo reel for the night. I will say, folks, the next one down on the list we actually have seen before, and we are prioritizing new work. So we're going with Jonas. So everybody please click the Jonas link, please. Jonas, if you're in the chat, let us know, because we're about to take a look at your reel. Jonas Rolzalski. Rats, you ready? All right, let's do it. Whoa, short and sweet.
That was fun.
All right. Overall thoughts, folks?
It's clean, which I appreciate.
Super clean. I do think that we need more, like it's three, 1, 2, 3 loops and then it's over. I think there's definitely room for some more pieces. All three of these are really clean, but we gotta have some more variety in showing your skill set. And in particular, this middle one is like a cute, clean little loop that I think is pretty effective, but I think it's held for like a very, very long time for what it is. I think I needed at least one less loop of looking at that for the whole scope of the reel. And then we really need some pieces, I think, that are just straight body mechanics, not in a loop, moving through space. In desperate need of that. Anyone else overall impressed?
I love this thing. Sorry, go ahead, Tyler.
No, I was going to say real quick, when there are, I think it's okay to have a short reel, but when you do have it shorter, it's easier to be a lot more nitpicky about the few shots that are on there.
You're also showcasing the same ability 3 times. Like I can make a complicated loop, which is good. You just have it thrice. So the same length right now, just pick your favorite one of these and then do 2 others that like highlight 2 different type of stuff, maybe.
Mm-hmm. I love Anomide in the chat. I would love to see a complex or asymmetric piece in here to put everything together. All the big mechanics are working in the loops. A big kicker could be a great addition. A big kicker, I agree, is like something that's really packing a punch. I think is missing here.
I left the sync to play it at 1.25 speed. And the run, this first run, felt a little bit better. This is good. But what really helped was this dance. So I just feel like it's a little bit slow. And again, I think it might be a little too true to reference. So whenever like I have animation, even on myself, I'll just like play blast it, stick it in After Effects, and just like grab sections of it and start accelerating them to see like, okay, where is like, because if you do it in Maya, then all the keys get muddy. But if you do it in a software that's like non-destructive, then you can just chop it up and like do a bunch of stuff there and then decide like, okay, hey, I like this better. And then you can translate that back into Maya. So you can pick a couple places in this dance that aren't like the big keys, and you can probably accelerate them a little bit. That way it'll add a little bit more punch to it, I think.
Yeah, that's a great note. And if you're using Sing Sketch and you're only using Sing Sketch to like submit to these demo reviews, there's great tools in here that you can use for yourself, and one of them is that time changer, which is at the bottom here. I don't know if I can even see it on the stream, but it's got a little like gauge and it says 30 FPS, and you can just change that, and it says 1.25 speed. Great tool. Great note, Brendan. All right. So is there one of these that we want to focus on, or because they're all kind of loops, does anybody just sort of have thoughts in general?
I have a thought on the run. I think you can add more on the chest. I feel like the chest is disconnected to the arm movement. Like, for example, the chest is going this way, screen left from here, but the arm is kind of like going that way. And then it's just a little bit disconnected. Like, then when the arm's coming back, the chest is still like going there. And I feel like there's not enough movement like on the up and like with the up and down, maybe like more drag and more overlap, and more overlap on the head as well, just a tiny bit. It feels a little bit static. But I like the weight of the sword. But yeah, I mean, just few thoughts.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's tough because like it is such a tight movement, but I agree that it could have a little bit more life in it. Right now it feels a little yeah, just a little constrained, such that it's like detracting from it versus like feeding into that. Oh, that this is like a machine that's coming to get you kind of thing. I know it's not a robot character. Maybe it is. I don't know. But there's like a lethality that comes with tightness like that all the time, and I think it's leaning into it's missing animation versus that sort of lethal tightness.
Yeah, and there is a line, right? You just have to find it because it's almost there. And I do agree, it needs like a little bit more, but that little bit more in this case might be millimeters, right? Because you don't want to add like a whole bobbly head and a whole like it has the energy it needs it. It just needs to be like right now is at a 9, and you kind of want it at a 10.2. Like once you start going to like, okay, we're at 12, it's like okay, it starts looking goofy. So try to like push it until you get to there. And one trick I like to do is just like I'll go goofy with it in an animation layer, and then I'll just pull it back until it doesn't look like too bad. So it's just in the loop it'll just go, and I can have a live slider of like the correction of what's happening. Of like, okay, here's the overlap of the head, and it starts looking like that. You tone it down until like it's like there in spirit, but you just feel it and not see it.
Yeah, I agree. I love just taking things in the graph editor and scaling up the curve until it looks absurd, and then reining it back in until it's in the natural space. I gotta see it because I think a lot of times with like really really subdued motion like this or really tight motion like this, it's like we want to give less and give less and give less. But sometimes you have to like push it so that you can see what it looks like and then rein it back from there. Because like I think if you push those curves that Alex pointed out and through the chest, you would pretty easily see that the arm feels like it's working against what he's doing there, and then you could swap that motion in the chest to feel like it's driven correctly. But without it, there's like, it's close, but not quite. I really like Brendan's note about speeding up this dance. The thing that really gets me is, again, it feels really, really stiff. And like for like such a fun little dance, I think it would be, there's like some joy that you are kind of missing here, because this in particular, this whole section of her body is just like moving as one unit, and like adding in like the shoulders having some looseness. And honestly, get the mask out of here. She's dancing and she's looking at her feet. Some of that joy being like, this would be like a moment where you're like not doing like a lip syncing piece, but you have this moment to do like a very like cute little acting shot of like, oh, she's feeling it, ooh, she vibing, or even if she's like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, because she's looking at her feet. I think this is a spot where you can do something that is really cute and really appealing in this loop that breaks up the loop more than you currently have it. And Alex is drawing a great draw over that would also break up that body posture. And we get like a lot of, I'm gonna wait, Alex is gonna talk his note. I'm not gonna talk his note, but I have some
No, I'm just drawing your note, so you
Yes.
can keep talking.
Yeah, so the one of the things that like would remove some of like the stiffness, or like, I always think of, again, I feel like I'm like dating myself, all these references. So I forget who the character designer is, but they did like Kim Possible. And there's like a lot of like conversation about
Steven
like,
Silver?
Huh?
Steven Silver.
Yeah. I think a lot about how like getting a smooth side to the body and a complicated side to the body. And I think about that a lot in posing, because it makes the character easier to read and you get really strong lines of action. And partially because of this Akali rig, you know, she has these kind of wide hips that stick out. She's really skinny, so she has like sharp shoulders, sharp knees, sharp elbows. She's got like a lot of sharp features. So finding ways like with your line of action to get some of these smoother shapes as she's turning her body will make her more appealing and feel less blocky, and you'll feel a lot more of the energy that she is bringing as she's dancing, if you're able to push the hips one way or another to get that smooth side while she's like doing a complicated thing with her foot and her arm on this side, and switch it over. Smooth side on the one side while your attention is over on the busy side. Whereas right now with the way she's positioned, bony limbs, bony hips, bony knees, bony everything sticks out and makes it hard to really focus on one interesting part of the body.
For the body stiffness part, it is a stylistic choice. It oftentimes results in, like, I get good results with it, but I know you can't, it doesn't really physically happen, but if you translate the upper chest a little bit as it's doing it, and you do a little squashy, stretchy with it, just enough to like not feel like it's a bendy noodle, it ends up looking pretty good. So if you just translate the chest like as an overlap, just like I know that like the thing is the rotation of it we usually do, but the translation adds another element to it that sometimes ends up looking pretty good. So try that one out as well.
Yeah. All right. Any more thoughts here for our dancing Akali? Or any of the shots on the reel?
Don't forget hand poses.
Whoo! Speaking to my heart. Hundi P. Why
Yeah, I
am
was looking at
I
it.
so old today? Go ahead, Brendan. Sorry.
I was actually looking at it. Well, that hand could lose a little love.
Yeah, this looks like a grab all, rotate X.
Yeah. Any hand pose, I feel like you have the.
I always dance with my thumb tucked between my fingers. Yeah, that's a really, really great note. And like, watch your wrists. Like, especially when you're dancing, you get like these little kinks here. That's like, again, complicated. Kink, kink, pink. Lots of little bendies. Try and get like the flow. I mean, Alex drew that earlier. Get the flow going. The wrist should sort of follow. There's like if you're going to have a bend there, it should be like doing something specific.
Sometimes 3D rigs are not easy to get those poses. And I have not used this Akali rig.
You can do it.
You can do it. But I know you can do it because like you can just wrestle 3D rigs into like a pose. Doesn't matter what rig it is, but you can like, you really need to craft like, okay, this is a straight line from here to here. And sometimes I even draw it on my screen, like with a Epic Pen or something like that. I'll be like, okay, I want to do that. And then like, I can just mold the rest of the body. Like I can mold the 3D. I can wrestle it into sort of that pose of like, this is straight. Be straight. But it is hard. It is hard.
Yeah. All right, folks. I'm going to close this down. We have I was going to do maybe one more reel, but we have so many questions in chat that I think if we just finish this out with a couple questions, we'll call it a day. But first, rats in the chat for Jonas Rozalski. Thank you so much for your submission. Awesome work. Super tight. Can't wait to see what you bring next. Amazing. All right, folks. A couple questions I'm going to spin up here. Excuse me, a hiccup. One question from Sael. How long, rats, would you recommend animation reels to be? I think I could Google this one, but I'm curious about your thoughts.
Alex is the real man.
I wouldn't go past a minute and a half with intro and outro. I think that's a good number. It depends on how much experience you have. You're like very experienced season in the industry. 2 minutes plus is acceptable. But if you're a student, like a minute and a half, I think is ideal. So yeah, don't be surprised if you see someone who like years in the industry, like 3 minutes reel, and you wanna have the same. If you're still studying, it's better to keep like just the best shots and keep it shorter.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to keep mine to like 45 seconds. Like I try to just my metric of it is I need to be super excited throughout the whole thing. If I start dwindling excitement, okay, that's where I chop it off. Like that's it.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I'm like, the reel kind of is as long as it needs to be. Personally, I don't care how long you've been in the industry. If it's longer than 2 minutes, you better be saying something important. Because I think
Mine is like 3 minutes.
This is what we're gonna do.
It.
We're gonna bring the rats on, and we're gonna say, "Time to judge our demo reels, baby." We're gonna do it, and I'm gonna be like, "Alex, tell me about this. What is the extra minute bringing?" But like, okay, so, but yeah, I agree. I think like, just thinking about like, what is each shot in your demo reel bringing? What is it showing? And like, chances are, if you really like razor it down to something that is showing something different and unique and special with every shot that's showing the best side of yourself, I doubt that you're going to get a reel that's longer than 2 minutes anyways, unless you're an absolute rock star, in which case maybe I do want to see it, but still maybe not.
And also having a short reel just also speaks to your editing power, right? It's like you can just edit yourself, and the restraint of like, if you get hired into a job, you have to like, okay, what are the ideas? You need to know what's important, what's not important. And this, if you can condense all of your work into like, hey, this is important. The rest of it's okay. You have links to the rest if you want to see more. But that just speaks to your editing power.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Shows off another skill, baby. Okay, we're getting a ton of questions now. And I will say, rats, we're not going to hang out all night answering questions. You can post them in our Discord. It's up top there. We do have an AMA questions and AMA answers channel, so throw them in there, and we'll get the rats in there answering these questions. But there is one more that I really want to get to from Miracle Butt. Thank you. Oh wait, no, that's another question. Here it is. Here's a loaded question. I've got my first interview on Monday. First industry interview on Monday. It's a virtual interview, but with a smaller studio. Any advice? first of all, congratulations. So exciting.
Awesome.
I want to be spicy and be like, do you want to tell us what studio? Maybe we can give targeted advice, but I do have thoughts, but I want to hear from the rats first.
No, just give us your thoughts.
Okay. If you are still here, Miracle Button, still listening, let us know what studio. If you feel comfortable, no pressure, you don't have to. But my thoughts are that you must be find comfort in expressing. Okay, cool. Co-op in Montreal. The most recent was Goodbye Volcano High. I'm gonna Google that later so that I can see if I can give you more specific advice. But for me, and you got to take it all with a grain of salt, because every studio is going to be different, and what they want for their studio culture and what they're looking for in an interview, like, you kind of got to ride the vibe. But my greatest thing that I appreciate when I'm interviewing people is that they are able to talk gracefully about times where they were not the shining star, gracefully about growth that they experienced, identifying a pain point that they even caused and how they worked to resolve it. Too often, I feel like I run into people who every story they have is about how they were the savior for everyone around them. Nobody could do anything. They could do everything. They were a perfect angel child. And I'm like, that's like a red flag. Like, if not a full red flag, definitely like a deep orange flag. Nobody's perfect. Nobody going into any job situation, because it's like a collaborative space, is not going to run into things that are like out of their control. And having self-awareness about the things that you personally struggled with, the grace to talk about those things, it's not a sign of weakness. It's not like a sign of how you're going to mess up in the future. If you're able to talk about how you identified a problem and grew from it, that just shows me that's not a problem that I'm going to have with you when you work with me, because you've already started to address it. So having self-awareness and honesty and the humbleness to talk about the times where you weren't perfect, I think, is one of the most important things in an interview situation. And yes, you should definitely have all these anecdotes about when you were great too. Like, don't only talk about the times you messed up. That would be swinging too far in the other direction. But definitely having one or two instances in the brain bank that you can talk about comfortably would be my biggest piece of advice.
I think also the way you approach the interview. I just kind of have this in my life. I always like do it with the worst case scenario in mind. It's like, okay, like, and then you look at it as like, oh, this is a cool opportunity for me to practice my speaking skills, my interview skills. Like, don't, like, if the job is at the end of it, then awesome. But if you're there for the experience to like talk to these people, see what they're about, learn, what they want, and just be curious, just to be like open and honest without an expectation at the end of it, then you're just going to relax during the interview. Because if you go in there like, oh my God, like, oh, I need to be perfect, like, then you're just going to trip over your own tied shoelaces, and then like they're not going to get the best version of you. So if you go in there with like, I just want to see what they're saying and what they're going to ask, I'm just curious about like what this process is, then I feel that if you don't get it, it's still a positive experience at the end of it, because you went through it with the open mind, I guess, and that just eliminates the pressure of it. I think just use it as another training opportunity.
Yeah, I love that perspective. It will like de-stress you. And also, like, I wanted to echo Enomide in the chat. Really good advice. And an interview is just as much about getting to know them as you getting to is about you getting to know them as them getting to know you. And so, like, going in and being like, oh shit, this is my one chance to, like, I hope they do me the favor of hiring me. Not only will like give you unnecessary anxiety, but like, don't forget that they are looking for somebody who can help them with like the problems that they have, which is, a lack of resources. They need another animator. Aramil also saying it right. You got to vet the studio. You got to know if they're a good fit for you. So make sure you bring questions. That's like one thing I always mark down. Somebody doesn't ask me any questions, either about myself or the company. That's it, baby. I won't not hire you for it, but I will be like, nothing? No, you're fine? Okay, great. Interesting. Perfect, Miracle Butt. Love to hear that you got lots of questions written down. If at any point during an interview somebody is making it seem like a favor they're gonna do for you to hire you, run, baby, run. Don't do it. It's not worth it. Work anywhere else that will respect you. So it's a mutually beneficial it should be a mutually beneficial experience for you and the people interviewing you. All right, folks, any other thoughts about interviews? And lots more good questions, but we are going to call it. Please join us on the Discord and ask your questions there. We will have more streams in the future, and I promise it won't be so long between them. It was just a bit of a busy, crazy time. And with that, let's do some sign-offs, folks. Rats, if people can find you somewhere, where can they find you?
You can find me
I
on
spend most of-
Instagram. Oh no, go for it, Tyler. Sorry. Interrupt.
No, I was just gonna say I spend most of my time in this room, but please don't come and find me because I'm shy.
Brendan?
You can find me on Instagram at Brendan Animate. You can also find me at the Rats Discord. I'll be in there more often.
Love it.
I'm typing mine in the chat. It's my name, but you can find me LinkedIn, everywhere around Instagram, Discord.
Beautiful. And once again, my name is Lana Bashinsky. You can find me on all of the social media sites at Latieni. That's Latienie. If you don't want to remember how to spell that, in the Discord there is a Meet the Rats channel, and I've put in all of the information that you can find there. I also am primarily the one tweeting from the Rat Twitter account. So if you have questions, you want to submit a demo reel, you want to suggest a stream idea, we're always looking for new stream ideas. Hit us either on the Discord, at the Twitter, anywhere at all. You know, conferences are coming up. I'll be at GDC. Are you? Come say what's up at the Animation Summit. Alex is going to be at GDC. Woo! It's very exciting. Lots to come in the next couple months. We really appreciate you. Thanks for being such an awesome community, and we'll catch you in the future. Goodbye.